Hey guys, how you doing? This is Tru Pettigrew, and remember, life is a journey, not a destination. Check out this 411 session. When I think about my journey, I realize I'm very fortunate and I'm very blessed because it turned out a lot better than it probably could have, and quite honestly, than it probably should have, considering some of the choices and decisions that I made along the way. So, grew up in Baltimore, and when I left Baltimore, I actually went to school here in Decatur. I went to DeVry in Decatur. And the reason that I chose DeVry is because I remember a recruiter came to the school and he talked about this new school, I had never heard of it, and I had got accepted to some other colleges and universities. And he said, there's no real actual campus, you live on your own, you have your own apartment, you have your own townhouse, and there's a 3-year program, and if you go and you rank really high on SATs, and if you go into their engineering program, you'll graduate in 3 years, you'll make a lot of money. That's all I needed to hear. I have my own place, and I'll make a lot of money fast. And that's all I needed to hear, and that is honestly how and why I chose the school that I chose. And so I get down here, and I was fortunate that I was gifted, but that can be a gift and a curse. Is because I was gifted. My mother sent me to a magnet program in school, so I got bused, because the neighborhood that I lived in is just the zone school. This was back in the day, and they had police and armed security guards at my junior high school.
Wow.
So this was back in the day where I grew up in Baltimore. So my mother said, all right, I can see, how things have happened for some of the other kids in the neighborhood, so you got something going, and she noticed something in me. That's why I could really appreciate each of you saying about your mom recognized something in me. And so I got bused. And I think that helped me in hindsight because I was exposed to some different things and different cultures and different experiences at an early age. And so I was able to see at a young age that there was a distinct difference from my school friends and my neighborhood friends. And early on, I really couldn't understand, how come y'all don't act like them, and how come y'all don't act like them? But I quickly realized, where the differences were and why the differences were the way that they were. So now that I'm in school, I am down here and I'm going to school, I'm MCing and I'm DJing all the parties. So after school, when I used to come down here, they used to send and do parties, so I used to get money. But so after school, I decide, you know what, this was cool. I put in the work, I went through it, but I don't like it. This isn't like, this guy sold me on this, and it actually took me 4 years. It was a 3-year program. I don't like this. I don't really want to do this for a living. So what I realized was I did pretty well at this whole MCing and DJing thing. I'm gonna be a rapper. Yeah. So after school, after college, I went back to Baltimore for a hot second, and then it was between New York and LA. And at the time, this was the early 90s. So LA was popping at the time. It was just like, that was the scene, it was just like the whole Death Row, just the, Dre, Cube, the whole lynch mob. Y'all probably don't remember lynch mob. Yeah. But so it was between New York and LA, and I had been to New York before, but the LA music scene was really on fire at the time. So I made a choice that I was going to go to LA, and I moved to LA. Didn't know anybody out there. I said, I'm moving to LA. I saved up a few coins and hopped on the bird, and I was out. Convinced my partner to move out there, one of my homeboys, to move out there as well, but he didn't come out till later, so I went out there and set things up. And y'all will probably laugh, but because I had never been to LA before, The only thing I knew about LA was what I saw on TV. So where did I go to look for a place? Now I didn't end up living in Compton, but I did live in Crenshaw District. Because I was like, if nothing else, I know I will be around. Now, y'all have to remember, I grew up in Baltimore. So if nothing else, it will be a familiar environment for me. There was people that I could relate to, people that look like me, and you know, not that I'm proud of this, but probably act like me at the time, a long time. I don't act like that anymore. So that's where I moved and ended up living. And so my partner eventually came out and we started doing shows. We were performing, doing live shows, pressing our own CDs, selling our CDs after the shows, and actually built up quite a bit of a following. I remember through networking, and somebody mentioned, I think it was both of you ladies mentioned about the importance of networking. And that was one thing I didn't have a problem doing. If I went to a function or went to an event, I would just talk to people. Didn't know who they were. Some people turned out to be somebody that could help me, some not. But I would just make sure people knew who I was when I showed up, when I walked in the room, to Isha's point, and just started networking. And I met a guy, and you guys will not, some of you maybe, you guys won't know any of these names. I met a guy named Terrence Toy, who was the late night DJ at a radio station called The Beat. Out in LA. And I let him know what I was doing out there, and he was like, man, you should come do the sound check for me. It's like every night before I go on, I have an up-and-coming MC do sound check before I go on, and it's basically, they test my microphone and they can just kind of spit something and, you know, in an effort to help them get on. And that night, the lynch mob was at the radio station. And so I met them, we talked, and they let me spit, and they liked what I heard. They introduced me to Cube and blah, blah, blah. So I opened for them this spot called the Diamond Club. I still remember, on Hollywood Boulevard, not there anymore. But so I started making some inroads with some folks out there, doing live shows, making a little bit of money. And I met a young lady who came to one of my shows, just socially, and once again, just talking to folks. And she had her own company. She had her own apparel company. And she had a licensing agreement with Converse, the sneaker company. I don't know if you guys, the Converse, the sneaker company. And so she saw that, you know, me and my partner were doing our thing, had a little bit of a following. So she said, hey, why don't you wear my stuff at your next show? I was like, all right, cool. So she started giving me stuff for all the shows to wear. And so not just apparel, then she started giving me sneakers. Then next thing I know, there's a banner at our show, and I'm giving stuff out. And what was happening at the time, and I had no idea, I was receiving sponsorship. I wasn't getting any money at the time, but I was receiving product sponsorship, and I was seeding product for her. And so doing promotional work for her as a, if you will, street teaming or brand ambassador, if you will. Now, because marketing and advertising wasn't my field, and that's what I'm getting up to, because that's where I was able to obtain a lot of successes in the marketing and advertising industry. And that's what one of the reasons that I believe John has invited me here to talk about the success I've been able to accomplish in the marketing and the advertising world. And so I got a taste of that, and she told the folks at Converse, and said, hey, there's a guy out here that's actually making a little bit of noise. You guys should kind of take a look at him and see if we can do something. And so, I mean, $300 a week. Y'all talking about somebody that was just balling out of control. She introduced me to the folks at Converse, and we had a conversation, and they said, okay, we want to make this official, not just kind of whenever it happens. We want to put some structure behind this. So whenever you perform, wear our stuff, they put the signage up and everything, and we'll pay you $300 a week. So eventually I became a brand ambassador for the LA market, excuse me, for Converse. And all of this stuff is new to me, but in my mind, okay, this rap thing is about to really take off. And so what happens is they said, hey, we have a new shoe coming out. We want you to give it to some of your friends, you know, in the music industry, some of the people that you know. And I wasn't an established rapper at the time. I was still trying to get on. But because I took the opportunity to network and meet people and make sure people knew who I was, on every chance that I received, that I got, I was able to, I had a couple of my friends that were kind of starving artists, if you will, that were in the film industry. Actually, they were looking to get on, and they worked up on the lot. We called the lot. It was the Warner Brothers lot, and so they worked on the lot. Dre, Dex, and Doreen. And they all went to Morgan. Dre and Dex were actually from Baltimore. Doreen was from New York. And so I would go up there sometimes to visit them on the lot. Now, of course, when I'm on the lot, you know, I'm waiting for them. They're working, so I'm hanging out. Me and one of my partners, I'm talking to anybody and everybody. Turns out I end up meeting Marcus King. You guys may not know that name, who at the time was Jamie Foxx's manager and Marcus Curry's manager. There was a show out at the time called Hanging with Mr. Cooper, Marcus Curry, and then the Jamie Foxx show was on the lot, and also the Martin show. All those shows were on the lot at the time, being filmed at that time. And then I met another guy named Kyle Bowser. Don't know if you guys, but this is kind of y'all, if y'all really studying your craft, you know, these are names that you probably should know. And he was the husband of a woman named Yvette Lee Bowser. And Yvette Lee Bowser created Living Single. And so, once again, they were very connected. And so, just through relationships and having conversations with them, because to me at the time, I was like, you know what would be cool if I could get them to get the people on their shows to wear this stuff. Now, it just made sense to me to do that. So Marcus and Kyle worked with me. It's like, yeah, sure, no problem. So we was able to get Martin to wear the product on the show, was able to get Marcus Curry to wear the product on the show, was able to get Jamie Foxx to wear the product on the show. Now, at the time, once again, I had no idea how valuable this was to the brand, and this was really product placement and product seeding. And no one taught me that. To me, it just made sense for what they were looking to accomplish. And once I put that into my weekly report and explained to them what I was doing, that was it. So they offered me the job at Converse. And I was like, nah, son, I'm a rapper. Y'all go ahead with that corporate thing. You know? No, man. I'm in LA, right? I'm from Baltimore, so I'm in LA out there with my Timbs and my shorts and no socks looking real crazy. Trying to really just hard to see. Thank you. And what they did, what they were smart, is they introduced me to the folks at their advertising agency. And so the folks at the advertising agency were a lot younger, a lot more fun, a lot more engaging. I don't know if you guys know it, but some of the shows that you've probably seen on TV about advertising industry, it's really like that. I mean, it's fun. I mean, like, that was once I eventually got into it and elevated to executive levels, I mean, it's hard work. But as a young person that wasn't familiar with it at the time, they knew what they were doing, because they had me hook, line, and sinker. I'm like, this is what y'all do every day, and y'all gonna pay me to do this? This is a lot of fun. Let's rock. So in my mind, I was like, okay, if I take this advertising gig, all that's going to do is help enhance or push or promote my rap. That's how I'm thinking at the time. So I said, okay, cool. But I had to move to Boston because the Converse is based in Boston and the advertising agency was based in Boston at the time. So I took the job at the ad agency, moved to Boston, and in my mind, that was going to be a temporary thing. Build up some relationships, get some real corporate sponsors, let them know how I can spit this hot fire, right? And then they're gonna get behind me. And then as time went on, I realized that, you know what? I like this, and I'm pretty good at it. And that was, I believe, when I really recognized my gift. And we heard a lot today about gifts and passion. And that's what I want to encourage you guys to identify and recognize your gifts, because what I realized is the gift didn't change. It was the application of the gift that changed. Because I was still using my words to influence people's lives and behavior. So when I was emceeing, when I was a rapper, it was through the power of words that I wanted to influence people's moods and attitudes and behaviors and actions. And what more dominant of a platform to do that than the advertising industry? And so I realized that I was good at this because that's an area in which I was gifted. And because I was good at it, it's something in which I was gifted, I excelled in it. And that's why I want to encourage you guys, and that was one of the first lessons that I learned in my journey, is the importance of recognizing your gifts. and we all have gifts. And the application of the gift, do not compartmentalize or minimize the application of your gift. It can be used in a host, in a myriad of different ways. And when you're using your gift, then you are truly beginning to walk in your purpose. And I believe we all have a purpose. We have an individual purpose, and we have a collective purpose. And I am also of the belief that there are generational purposes. So you guys in your generation, which you guys consider the millennial generation, there's a purpose for your generation, where the previous generation had its purpose. And so understand your gifts and recognize your gifts, and then you will be truly walking in your purpose. And when you're doing that, you are destined to win. You will win. I heard a quote, and I live by this, is when you are doing what you are supposed to do, you can't be stopped. But if what you are doing isn't what you're supposed to be doing, then you should be stopped. So I really live by that, and I want to share that with you guys today and really look to apply that to your lives. And so I really credit the reason, a lot of my success, I mean, in everything I give God the glory, but the success is because I really recognized my gift and began to walk in my purpose. And it was still using my words to influence people's behaviors. And so as I excelled in the advertising industry, and it was really on-the-job training. Like I told you, I went to DeVry for electronics. And so I haven't touched a transistor or did a circuit analysis since I left Decatur. But what I was able to do was pick the brains of everybody that would give me the opportunity to talk to them. I saw the way they were living. I saw how nice the lifestyles that they had and how well they were living. And so any chance I had with the executives at the ad agency at the time, I would bend their ear, pick their brains. So what about this? What about this? What about that? And so I was thirsty for knowledge. I was hungry for knowledge. And I put in the time and the energy, and I studied the craft. I studied my craft and worked on it over and over, because part of the reason was I was motivated to shine above and beyond my counterparts and my peers. And because most of them went to school, pretty much all of them went to school for that, and I didn't. And I was one, in that ad agency, the ad agency was called Houston Hersteck Fly, and then we eventually got acquired by a larger ad agency, which was Arnold Communications, which is one of the larger global agencies out there. But I was one of two black people in the ad agency at Houston Hersteck Fly. And then we got acquired by Arnold, which was a larger, 800 people advertising agency. I could still count on one hand, maybe two, the blacks that were part of that ad agency. And so I was driven to really excel and achieve, just because I believed that there were expectations that I probably didn't belong or shouldn't be there, or that I wouldn't really sustain over time anyway. So I was able to pick the brains of a lot of people, and that drove me, and I was really motivated to do that. And then eventually, with some of the gentlemen that I met with while in Boston, started my own shop. I started my own boutique research company that would fuel the insights for brands on how they would develop their advertising campaigns to reach youth and young adults. And so I started that company, and then after a couple of years, that company got acquired by a larger publicly traded company. And then I'm telling y'all, like, I always had a hustler mentality, and I believed I would do well in life. But this little kid from West Baltimore, when that went down, I was like, yeah. I was looking for the nearest sizzler. So I was like, okay, so I see now how this is working, right? And I really understood the process that was involved in this. And so I was able to start that, and that got acquired. And then within the company that I got acquired, the company was a company called Alloy, and Alloy puts out programs like Vampire Diaries, Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. Some of those shows that are supposed to be for teen girls that I question, and they really should be for teen girls. Pretty Little Liars, and was some Gossip Girl, And so that's the company. And so I was able to create a business unit within Alloy when I got there, because once again, I realized that there was not a lot of diversity within the organization. And so one of the reasons that I do what I do now is because during my journey into corporate America is I recognized that there was not a lot of diversity, even though a lot of these organizations may have had diversity and inclusion initiatives. Not that there was always malice or neglect. A lot of times it was just ignorance, and not from a negative standpoint. They just didn't know how or understand how to connect. And I think about Nicole, right? When you were talking about Kwanzaa, when there was no movies out about that, it's just because a lot of times people are intimidated by something that they are familiar with or don't know about.
That's right.
And I find that to be the case in corporate America as well. So where my career has taken me in more recent years into building a successful marketing career and being able to create, establish, and sell off companies and then maintain executive levels, executive positions at marketing companies for years, and influencing campaigns for brands like Nike, like Timberland, like Heineken, like Moet Hennessy, like the Home Depot. I mean, and you know, a lot of Fortune 500 companies that I've been able to put my thumbprint on a lot of award-winning campaigns for these brands that I'm extremely proud of. One of the things that I became more passionate about was kind of diversifying the playing field, evening the playing field, if you will, but really diversifying it. And I realized that that conversation has to be had on both sides of the coin, because a lot of the young people that I would bring in, because my mission became to create opportunities for other talented people of diverse audiences and diverse communities in corporate America, whether it was the ad agency, marketing agency, just in corporate across the board, is to create those opportunities. And so when I would talk with a lot of the young people that I would hire or bring on board and understand some of their frustrations, it was because they felt like the organization or the company didn't appreciate or recognize the unique values that they brought to the table, simply because they had a perspective that was different from what the organization's culture may have been. And of course, those perspectives are going to be different because your experiences and your backgrounds are different, but I believe that is what allows any organization to thrive and to grow, is the diverse perspectives that we can bring to the table. So I wanted to help these younger people understand it's not about conforming, but it is about understanding how to adapt and incorporate your unique value into the overall vision and mission of that organization, because you are there to help the organization grow. And the other side of that coin that I realized I had to start having conversations with were the organizations and the companies, to help them understand what true diversity and inclusion is, because a lot of people will have the diversity, but then you have a bunch of black people and you got them over here in black division, you know, and you got, you know, the Hispanic group in the Hispanic division. And so, okay, so you can check off the diversity box, but there's another part to that phrase, right? Diversity and inclusion. So where there is no inclusion, there's no commitment. So when those people that are part of the fiber of that organization don't feel included in the decision-making process, or don't feel included in helping to create the culture of that organization or that environment, they will get frustrated, feel neglected, and want to leave. And so I've seen a lot of that happen. So where I have now transitioned my career and shifting my journey, I call December 2012 of my life halftime, because I am now starting in 2013, going into the second half of my life. And I heard an older gentleman say once, after he had achieved a level of success in his life, it's time now to go from success to significance. And so that is where I am in this stage of my life. I've been blessed enough to have the fruits of success, and now it's time for me to, in my second half of my life, is now go into significance, which is one of the reasons that I'm here tonight, to share with you guys the benefits of my experience, my expertise in being able to maneuver the waters of corporate America and be successful in corporate America and answer any questions that you have about what to really expect, because there's still a lot of work to do. It is a lot better than it has been, but there is still a lot of work to do. And what I don't want is for any of you young people, my little sisters and my little brothers, to get in there and get frustrated and feel as though there is nowhere to turn, that there is no outlet, that there are some things that you can consider, and that there are resources that you have from people that have persevered and that have understood how to make the transition a successful one. And so don't just get frustrated and walk away and leave, because you have unique gifts and talents that can serve the organization well and serve you well in the process. So some things that you should know as millennials, that corporate America or the older generation, how you're viewed, and this may not all of this will not apply to some of you, but some of this will apply to all of you, if that makes any sense, right? Is that they feel like there is a sense of entitlement with this generation, that you guys feel as though you're owed something, that you feel as though that there is that you want to receive before you achieve, if you will, you know? And it's actually the opposite, you know? You actually need to achieve before you can receive any props or accolades. I was listening to your story about the grind, putting in the work. It's like, you know, you understood that you had to achieve before you could expect to receive. And there is a belief with this generation that you guys have it twisted. And I don't believe that to be the case. But there are some of your colleagues and counterparts that are making it bad for you. So you guys have to go in there now and clean that up and make sure that you don't reinforce that negative stereotype. There's also a perception that this generation has a instant gratification mindset, that you want it now, that you lack patience, aren't willing to put in the work necessary to get there. It's like everybody wants to be on a winning team, but nobody wants to go to practice, right? Practice. And with the technology right now, I can understand that everything is instant, everything is quick. So that may condition you to have that instant gratification mindset. But one of the things that I want to leave you with is that there are no shortcuts, right? There are no shortcuts. And that statement moved me so much. That's the title of my first book. I have a book that will be coming out this summer, and the title of the book is No Shortcuts. And it's a simple 3-step process. Prepare, perform, and you'll prevail. And it's really that simple. So that's what I really want to leave you guys with today.